If you've been paying attention to the news, airports are becoming one of the most dangerous places to be, despite the increase in security. We've compiled a list of some super dangerous airports, but it isn't terrorism that you're going to need to be afraid of. Coming up, we'll have a look at some of the most scary airports, including airports surrounded by mountains with freakishly short runways. One with a runway that intersects with one of the city's main streets, and another that gets so close to onlookers that they could almost touch it as it flies overhead. Join us as we have a look at some of the world's most dangerous airports. Lukla Airport. If you're ever planning on visiting Mount Everest, there's a good chance that you're going to be flying into Lukla Airport. And after hearing this, you may want to just change your plans. Due to its location, landing a plane in this area is extraordinarily tricky and probably makes even the most experienced pilot nervous with every attempt. The airport itself is sandwiched between some mountains, and because of that, the runway for landing and taking off is very, very short. In addition, the airport doesn't have lights or on-site air traffic controllers and only has minimal electricity. So, if weather conditions aren't exactly perfect, it might make for a very unsafe situation, since pilots have no one but themselves to rely on for a safe landing. So, just one wrong turn or gust of wind, and it's likely over for you. The Paro Airport. Not to overshadow the Lukla Airport, but the Paro Airport in Bhutan is even more dangerous. That's because this airport is right in the middle of the Himalayan mountains. And in order to land on its runway, pilots have to have a special license. In order to put this into perspective for how difficult it really is to land a plane at this airport, only 8 pilots in the entire world hold that license. Surrounding the airport are mountains with peaks that measure up to 18,000 feet high. Combine that with only 6,500 feet of runway space, and that will force pilots to land in a steep diving motion. One that's riddled with turbulent conditions and makes for quite a challenge. Oh, and not to add a plane full of terrified passengers. Flying into this airport is definitely not for the faint of heart. The Courchevel International Airport. Now, if you're traveling to France, you may not want to book your flight out of this particular airport. That's because its runway is just shy of 130 feet long. It also features a downward gradient, which makes takeoff even more difficult for even experienced pilots. The airplane has to be brought up to a certain speed, and if they don't, then you'll just end up diving off the edge of the cliff. And if that wasn't scary enough, the runway is also built right into the Alps. And if you even want to land, pilots are going to have to weave through a narrow valley that's surrounded by mountains. So you'd think that this airport would require pilots to have a special license as well, but it doesn't. The Gibraltar International Airport. Now, unlike the previous few airports we've talked about, there are no mountains here, and there is plenty of space to land at the Gibraltar International Airport. However, there is one little thing that makes landing here just a tiny bit terrifying. The runway cuts right through one of the main streets in town. So if you thought waiting for a train to pass was bad, just try waiting for an airplane. In order for planes to land, they have to close down the road. And they've even installed traffic lights warning cars about incoming planes. But, you know, people are pretty stupid, and there have been a few near-fatal accidents. NARSARSUAQ Airport. Located in Greenland, the NARSARSUAQ Airport is considered one of the most difficult airports to land in. That's because it has some of the shortest runways in the world, and what little space pilots do have is covered in slick ice. Not only that, but Greenland experiences many wintry storms, which of course creates a lot of turbulence along with low visibility. Considering that one large gust of wind could probably knock the plane completely off the ice-covered runway, it requires an experienced pilot to land at this airport. And if the weather wasn't bad enough, this airport is located next to an active volcano, and when they erupt, they spew out ash, which can stall or even wreck a plane's engine. So let's just hope they do regular safety and inspections for ash damage before they take off. The Paro Airport. The air traffic controllers at Paro Airport are determined to get you on the beach as soon as you touch down in Scotland. That's because their runway is made up of entirely sand. It's actually the only airport in the world that uses a beach as their runway. And it isn't just home to one runway, but this beach actually accommodates 3 separate runways, all of which are marked with wooden poles. And when they're used at night, which is often rare and usually reserved for emergencies, the runway will be lit up with vehicle headlights so that the pilot can see them in the dark. While they have 3 runways, only one is used at a time, presumably for safety's sake. With so many runways to choose from, how do they actually determine which one they're going to use? As it turns out, they look at the weather, specifically which way the wind is blowing, in order to determine which one's going to be most suitable. In the event that there is a high tide, all 3 runways are shut down because they're completely submerged in water. So if you're planning on traveling in and out of the Paro Airport, I'd probably check to see where the water level is before you decide to book your flight. Madeira International Airport. This airport is located on the Portuguese island of Madeira and has quite the track record for being a dangerous place to travel. It was initially built with a short runway that measured just a little over 5,200 feet. After one of the most devastating and deadliest plane crashes in Portugal history that killed 131 people, it was decided that the airport would need a much larger runway in order to be used safely. However, the airport was built on a cliff, and there was no land in front of the existing runway to be able to lengthen it. After some head scratching, it was decided that they would create their own land. The current extended runway now sits atop a long stretch of pillars, and it was extended once again in 2003, which would probably solve the problem, right? Wrong. Even with the extended runway, it's still considered one of the most dangerous airports in the world, mainly due to the nearby hills on both sides. The ocean and the high winds and turbulence all make up the equation for these factors. A lot of planes get caught in the wind as they land, and sometimes have to make multiple attempts in order to land safely, which is why pilots across the globe consider it one of the more challenging airports to enter into. CONGONHAS Airport. If you thought that flying around the mountains was scary, just imagine flying around a city. The CONGONHAS Airport, also known as the Sao Paulo Airport, is located in downtown Brazil. And I mean literally downtown, only 5 minutes from the center of the city. Because of this, the airport has been forced to reduce the number of incoming flights, as well as put in strict weight regulations on planes. In rainy weather, the original airport runways are extremely slick, which results in multiple plane-related accidents. In order to fight against this issue, the airport built new runways, which contain grooves that remove the extra rainwater. However, with this airport being the second busiest airport in Brazil, it looks like they'll have to build another airport just to accommodate the traffic. Let's just hope they learn from this mistake and don't build it in the middle of a large city. MUEANG International Airport. Alright, if you've got some downtime between your flights, you might want to consider hitting a golf course. And the MUEANG International Airport, located in Bangkok, conveniently has a golf course sitting right between 2 of its runways. Given that many accidents have been linked to planes coming to and from here, I'm not really so sure that I'd like to be on the green to just pass the time away. MCMURDO Air Station. You're probably not going to be headed to Antarctica anytime soon. However, if you are, you want to beware of the MCMURDO Air Station. This airport's runway is nothing but ice, and if the pilot fails to land at just the right speed, at just the right angle, you'll be in for some serious trouble. To remind you of this fact, there's actually the snow-covered remains of a plane crash that occurred back in 1970. And to make matters worse, it's often dark a majority of the time. So, pilots are forced to use night vision goggles to land. Kai Tak Airport. The Kai Tak Airport in Hong Kong was so dangerous that it was actually shut down in 1988. Pilots would have to be careful not to land in the sea, which shouldn't really be too difficult, but it's quite the challenge when you're trying to avoid hitting all of the tall buildings, along with all of the tall mountains that surround the airport. The pilots were required to take special training just to be able to successfully complete the Hong Kong turn, which was a sudden, sharp turn that was required to be able to land the plane successfully. It's really no surprise that the airport was shut down. Princess Juliana International Airport. While this airport is located in St. Martin in the Caribbean, spectators are more excited about the airport itself than they are about the beautiful beaches and the scenic views this stretch of islands has to offer. That's because this airport allows its visitors to sunbathe on a beautiful beach conveniently located right below planes that are flying overhead. It offers the closest possible view that you'll ever see of a plane in action, and tourists can actually enjoy a meal and a drink at the Sunset Bar and Grill while listening to air traffic control broadcasts, which lets everyone know when a plane is about to come in and fly over the beach. When a plane is coming in or taking off, everyone rushes out to the beach to see it. And if you put two and two together, you're also going to realize that it's quite dangerous for multiple reasons. One of those reasons is the high winds that planes create. Every time a plane lands or takes off, it produces over 100-mile-per-hour winds. And that's capable of blowing a person right out into the ocean. Regardless of its dangers, every year tons of people flock to the airport to see it firsthand. So, the next time that you're traveling, we dare you to fly into any one of these airports. And when you do, just try to report back to us. Or maybe you've even flown into or out of one of the airports we listed. Let me know all about it in the comments below. And thanks for watching. Snakes on a plane. Almost. This guy almost recreated the famous Samuel L. Jackson movie Snakes on a Plane, but thankfully the TSA saw right through him. Literally. A seemingly ordinary man was getting ready to board a flight at the Miami International Airport